About 2 years ago, I made a video on My Hero Ultra Rumble, a crazy third-person shooter, 3D anime arena fighter battle royale thing. In it, I talked about the good, the bad, and the very ugly, and ultimately came to the conclusion that it was a flawed but still very fun game that I wanted to see stick around for a while. Since that video, the manga and anime have both completely finished, and that third one's Justice game I briefly hypothesized about finally came to fruition, which I've still not played for myself. Horikoshi even released a new one-shot manga in Shonen Jump just a few weeks before recording this. As for Ultra Rumble, the game is just about a month away from its 3rd anniversary at the time of recording this, and it still sees regular seasonal content updates. Brand new characters, new battle styles for existing characters, new maps, reworks of old maps, costumes, illustrations, the whole shebang. So I figured now's as good a time as any to revisit that old video and see what's changed for the better, what's gotten worse, and just see how I feel about the game now compared to before. Is it somehow gonna stick around for another 2 years? Let's find out together. Okay, so the rest of this is pretty much going to be completely unscripted. I'm just going to go through this video and we're going to see how I felt about it back then. I think most of what I talked about has aged fairly well. My general opinion is probably not going to be that different as far as the overall game, but I definitely think there are individual things that have gotten either noticeably better or noticeably worse. So let's just go ahead and start and we'll see where we go from there.
When you hear the phrase anime game, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Okay, so this intro was more or less a remnant of when the video had an older or a different title, which was this anime game shouldn't be this good. And I kind of just went on a short little rant about, hey, what do you think of when you hear the phrase anime game? Because usually it doesn't have that great of a connotation. Most people think pretty lowbrow stuff that doesn't get a ton of quality put into it. I mentioned quite a lot of games either here from like fighting games, visual novels, RPGs, things like that. I do have this one bit though that I think aged really, really well.
Known as the Steam New and Trending tab.
Oh, that's real nice.
And this sort of thing has really only gotten a lot worse in the 2 years since I made this game, because now there is just so much AI goon slop going around on not just Steam, but like PlayStation Store, Nintendo eShop is just full of all that crap, and it's pretty awful. But that aside, yeah, I describe the game as a because this is what it is. Just to set up the fact that it's like an absolutely ridiculous idea, and that I still ended up liking it.
Yeah, I'm being 100% serious. This Fortnite clone based on My Hero Academia of all things has speed-ran its way into becoming one of my new favorite games, and I'm not a battle royale kind of guy. I played exactly one game of Fortnite maybe 6-7 years ago.
God, okay, so I've come back to this video a handful of times just to see how it aged. I completely forgot that I said 6-7 years ago, but that sentiment really has not changed. I have not played another battle royale since this, or even any other kind of like anime hero shooter type of game. Like Marvel Rivals came out, I think at the end of this year actually, when this game was, when I recorded this video. No interest in that game, don't particularly care. I've gone back and forth on Overwatch the past 2 years, more or less, just being like, I'm a bit of an Overwatch tourist, I would say. I don't really play the game all that much anymore. But in general, yeah, I would say my sentiment for this is, yeah, I don't usually vibe with these kinds of games. But something about this game in particular, there really is nothing else like it on the market, whether it's an anime game or something else. And I think that's part of why it just ended up really sticking with me.
And never so much touched games like PUBG, Apex, Warzone, any of those. If I have to play online shooters, I'm usually going to gravitate towards the ones that have that extra bit of special sauce to them. Games like Team Fortress 2, Titanfall, or Splatoon.
And yeah, this sentiment also has not changed much at all. I still play TF2 a lot. I haven't played as much Splatoon lately. I think since this video I have broken at least 650 hours. So I actually didn't really play that much between then and now, if only because the game hadn't been getting that much content. Those Splatoon Raiders did come out about a month ago at the time of recording this, and that game was quite fun. But that's neither here nor there.
So what is it about My Hero Ultra Rumble? God, that's a Japanese-ass name. That made me like it so much. That made me...
Something about the word rumble the Japanese seem to really like in their game titles. I think there was like a Monkey Ball game that came out that also had that was called like Banana Rumble or something like that. I think there's a Sonic Rumble too, isn't there? So many weird games of this name for whatever reason. I guess they just really like the word.
Sink this much time into it. You might call me crazy or a shill or
or some other third thing.
But even so, I want to tell you why I like it, and yeah, we'll go over what sucks about it too.
Yeah, so like,
Don't you?
me immediately foreshadowing the worst part of this game with the gacha elements, which we'll talk more about later, because I don't talk about that for a decent while. But I do make sure to put that in the very forefront of like, yeah, this game has some pretty notable issues. If you know, you know.
You worry. So I want to tell you about
My hero wants justice too!
So yeah, this game, I mostly just use this as an excuse to talk about the production, because you can very clearly tell between just looking at the two games that Ultra Rumble is basically just a giant asset flip, and that really has not changed. If anything, it's actually gotten more noticeable because in season 11, it might have been 10, they added Monoma, and Monoma was not a character from One's Justice 2. He was actually from the new game All's Justice, which I don't think had been announced at that point. And since then, they've added characters like Armored All Might, Lady Nagant, Young All for One, One for All Deku, and most recent, well, no, Gentle Criminal was from. They also added Star and Stripe, and they finally added Mirko. I do mention Mirko later on in this video, and they did finally add her like a couple months ago, and she's pretty fun. But yeah, the asset flip accusations are pretty much completely accurate, because they did also do that for the fourth map, the most recent one, Neo Academia, which is just wholesale a bunch of All's Justice assets flipped into a new stage. Not a great stage, in my opinion. It's a little too thick, a little too layered, in any case. And yeah, Fortnite is almost a 10-year-old game, I mentioned here, because I mentioned how, let me see.
that hasn't been fresh in over half a decade. It really makes me think they had some confidence in their work.
And I do also mention here, Bandai being more than fine with releasing, subpar anime games. And Cursed Clash was actually from the same studio. This was a King title, who also made all the One's Justice games and Ultra Rumble. I've heard it's not very good. I don't have any interest in Jujutsu Kaisen, but I know people. I'm sure you've seen if you care at all about Jujutsu Kaisen, you've probably seen the Alpha Red video on this game, and yeah, it's not very good from what I can tell. Which I don't necessarily blame on Viking. I'm sure they weren't given the best production schedule for this, or at the very least not the best budget. You can tell just by looking at it too that they use basically a lot of the same techniques they use for this game. The models look basically one-to-one. And it's a shame, honestly, that franchises like this don't get anything too special. Meanwhile, Naruto is still getting, A+, at least visuals, I don't know about the gameplay, but A+ looking games from CyberConnect. Those games are absolutely gorgeous. And All's Justice does still look good from what little I've seen of that game. This was just a short little intro clip I made. So let's actually get started on the game about here.
Go!
Structurally, the game is about the same as any other battle royale. You pick your character, team up with your friends or some randoms, wait around for the lobby to fill up, pick your starting location, and fight to be the last team standing. Standard stuff, so where's that?
So since then, they have added an extra game mode called Area Battle Control, which is essentially like King of the Hill with 3 points. You need to stay on the point and capture it so it belongs to your team, and then you get points for it. And you need to fight for the other team between all 3 points, and there's like it either goes to, I think it's like a 5 to 8 minute, I don't remember exactly what the round timer is, it might be 10 minutes, I don't think it's that long actually, it's fairly short. It either goes to that, or if one team can control every point for like a full minute without giving them up, the game just automatically ends. It's an okay mode, it definitely favors different characters than the normal game mode, but I don't really play it all that often. They do usually have events for it, just so you can earn some extra items. But Area Battle Control is pretty mid. They are also adding another new mode this season, season 18, which I think is supposed to be like a deathmatch types mode. They didn't really talk that much about it, but it seems like it's mostly just you pick a group of characters and you just try to get a bunch of kills or damage. That mode will probably be okay, but I don't think it's gonna, take over by any means, just like Area Battle Control. But yeah, for the most part, the game is just the Battle Royale mode. You can play other things, but this is really all that anyone really plays.
Standard stuff, so where's that special sauce I mentioned before? Wow, I have gotta call it something different. First up, the characters.
God, so, okay. Seeing this character select screen really quick, it is night and day compared to the current one. It is not only way smaller, but you also don't have all of the alternate battle styles. You can see here it says quirk skill set. They changed that name to battle style at a certain point. But now all of these are present on the character select screen, and it is honestly pretty enormous. I think it's close to 50 characters now if we count all of the additional styles, which is pretty nuts for a game like this to have this many different characters that, you know, obviously the individual or the different styles will play pretty closely to each other. You have a lot of the same basic abilities, but all your skills are going to be completely different. So it's basically a different loadout, I guess is the easiest way to compare it.
As of Season 5, there's a total of 23 playable characters split across 5 roles, which
24 characters. I don't think I was counting the character skill sets at that point, which I think there were like 4 at the time of that video. I think there was one for Deku, Bakugo, Dabi, and Shigaraki. So yeah, probably like it was like still less than 30. And since then we've gotten quite a lot more.
Of 23 playable characters split across 5 roles, which gives you a general idea of what the character is capable of, as well as providing your team with a passive buff. Striker
roles are pretty much exactly the same. Nothing's really changed there. We're just talking about individual roles, what the characters do. That's pretty much all the same. Nothing really too different between there. Let's see, we're still talking about characters. I know this video like the back of my hand pretty much. So let's see. When we actually get to... I think I talked about it here.
They've also been adding quirk skill sets for several characters, which are essentially like alternate movesets, giving them a different role and quirk skills that shake up the way you play the character. The character variety is extremely high considering the roster size, and it's only gotten better as more have been added. The amount of different playstyles and levels of skill expression within those playstyles is huge, and it should only take a bit of experimentation to find new characters you like.
Yeah, so this is something that's only gotten even better, and debatably worse, depending on how degenerate you think some of the characters are. But there really is a ton of gameplay variety in this game. If you like a character, odds are they're going to play completely differently from everyone else. And I think that's really impressive for a game that's on, you know, a relatively small budget. You know, it's not like friggin' Overwatch where it took them 10 years to have like, what, 40... I don't even know how many characters Overwatch has at this point, but a lot. That game took 10 years, this game has had 3, and granted a lot of it is like backported assets, reused content, but you know, that's just the general appeal of these kinds of games, is just how big the roster is and how many different playable characters there are. And it's something I think this game does really, really well. And there's still a lot of characters from All's Justice that I would like to see in this game, or at least a few. I know Spinner still is not playable in that game, which I think is insane. I think he's like a boss character, and he doesn't have a playable version, which I think is honestly insulting. Spinner is such a cool character, and I think it's really weird that he's not in the game. I really figured he would have been added to this one at least, but the fact that he's not in All Justice at all is pretty sad. Also weird as far as characters, Mount Lady and Cementos and Ibarra, I believe, are not in All's Justice, even though they were added to this game first. At least I'm pretty sure Mount Lady isn't. She might be. I don't remember All's Justice roster off the top of my head, but I don't think any of them are in that game, which is very strange. You'd think they would have at least taken all that effort that they already put in here and just put it in that other game just for fun. Oh my god, team heals. This is something I kind of make a joke about, how like, oh, it's optimal support gameplay is just spam healing, but like, this has actually gotten way worse in terms of like its strength, because team heals were always kind of broken in terms of them having like global effectiveness. Your teammate can be on the other side of the map and you still get healed from one of these, but they changed it at least, I don't know how long ago this was, but they made it so team heals will just fully heal you. Either your health, your GP, or both if you're using a full heal. And I think that was a really bad decision. They were already really strong. Even just, you know, the fact that it was 200 shield instead of 250 was still insanely good. And it gave the support passive like kind of a use where it made team heals heal a lot more. But now the support passive is basically completely worthless because it only affects small heal items, because team heals heal you to full, and obviously full heals don't benefit from extra healing either. So the support passive is kind of just completely worthless right now, which not really a big deal, but something worth considering.
Better at them, and learning some big damage combos feels genuinely rewarding.
Okay, so I would say it does feel rewarding in a sense, but there are also a lot of really lame, like, odd, I guess you could call them like characters that just play themselves to a certain degree. There's one character who's very notorious for this, and that is One For All Deku. That character is absolutely absurd, and he's barely gotten nerfed. We'll talk more about balance later, I suppose, but
Time to take out the trash.
you can still do things like that, which is pretty fun.
I'll kick all of your asses.
I'd also throw out that this game's roster is
speaking of balance,
decently balanced. Some characters are definitely better than others, to be sure, but nobody's outright bad.
Okay, so I would still agree with that sentiment. There is definitely a power gap between the best characters and the worst characters, for sure. But I think even the bottom tier characters are still pretty decent in the right circumstances. It takes more effort to get value out of them, for sure, but they're not unplayable. You're not throwing by picking a weaker character. You just have to, you know, try a bit harder. But the strong characters are definitely way better, and there was one character in particular who really exemplified that, which was Lady Nagant. That character on release was absurd. Absolutely broken. She just had everything. She had mobility, she had damage, she had burst, she had sustain, she just everything you would want in a character in a battle royale, in a shooter game, she had it. And it was absurd. Her headshot, she could do headshots with her special action that would do like over 300 damage.
That's it. Nah. Oh, it's actually over. Oh my gosh, it's over. They should not have released this character. It's actually GG.
Instantly guard breaking you, it would one-shot you if you didn't have shields on most characters. She was ridiculous, and they nerfed her a bunch over the course of, like, I think she was added in season 14. So seasons 15, 16, 17, nerfs to her damage, to her mobility, to everything, and she was still really, really good because her tools were just so inherently strong. But then season 18 came along, and they just nerfed, they just decided, forget it, this character's not worth it. We're just gonna nerf her into the ground. They nerfed her damage across the board, basically every single ability. They removed her second mobility option, so she only has one. And they just nerfed the damage on her main attacks so much that, like, it's basically a pea shooter now. It's really sad. I do think a lot of the nerfs were warranted, but I definitely think they went overboard on her alpha, which is supposed to be your standard, basic, most reliable form of damage. They nerfed that so much to where her level 9 maxed out highest power version of it does less damage than level 1 Deku for his left click. It's really, really bad. We'll see if they end up changing that at some point in the season, maybe partially reverting some of those nerfs. But she definitely, that's like easily the hardest fall from grace any character this game has had. Going from being like top 1 for like at least 2 seasons to still like top 5 to being like barely even a mid tier. Again, her individual tools are still very strong. The problem is you just have to put in way more effort, like landing a snipe shot every single fight, to even be comparable to her performance before, and it's pretty sad. Which is a shame, because she was so much fun too, in part because of how broken she was. But just in general, her kit felt so good to use, and it felt rewarding to land shots. You know, finally a character who actually needs to aim. And you know, granted, aiming in this game is still pretty generous. It has big hitboxes, so it's not really too aim intensive compared to a lot of other games. But it still, you know, requires more effort than some of the other characters who don't require aim at all.
Everyone has the tools to be effective in the right circumstances, and in an era of games where it's extremely easy to just pick the meta characters, it's refreshing to have a roster where basically...
So in this example here, I used Overwatch, which, this was like, when this video was released, this was like right in the middle of MAGA meta. You can see, I picked this clip specifically, I don't even remember when this was. This was sometime, oh, this was Overwatch Champions. And I picked this clip specifically because both teams are completely mirrored. It is Cass, Pharah, MAGA, Kiriko, Lucio, and I think all of those characters. God, let's not even talk about Overwatch balance, because MAGA is and was a mistake. And then I used early Splatoon 3 footage here, back when Splash-O-Matic was really strong and you just had 3 crab tanks every game because it was so ridiculous. And a sloshing machine for good measure. I have not kept up with competitive Splatoon 3 much at all since the game's content slowed down, but I think it's more or less fine right now.
To have a roster where basically anyone can beat your ass and for it to mostly feel fair. Now,
okay, so the fair part has definitely gone out the window the past 2 years. There have been a lot of characters who kind of just feel like they win interactions for free if you make even a single mistake, and it is not particularly fun. Or they just have really narrow counterplay windows.
You really want to just sweat your balls off, then yeah, you can just pick a reliable damage character like Izuku or Bakugo or Mount Lady, and clean house as long as you have decent aim, awareness, and teammates who have used a keyboard for more than 5 seconds in their life.
Okay, so Deku and Mount Lady are definitely still very good. Normal Bakugo is pretty average. He's not bad by any means. I would say his cluster skill set is definitely a lot stronger. But yeah, you can just pick, if you are good at the game, you can just pick a character who, you know, clicks on people, and you will just win based off of mechanics, as long as you know also have decent, like I said, awareness and game sense and all that.
Alright, teammates. So I mentioned earlier this is a 24-player battle royale, but it's also a team-based game, split into 8 groups of 3 players each. There are other modes that let you play duos or even solo, but the ranked mode is all.
So yeah, they have not brought back duos in a long time. I think the solo option is still there for unranked. It's a shame they never brought back duos, because with the power level the game is at right now, I think duos would actually work a lot better than trios, because it would mean that healing is not as strong. It's a lot harder to 3v1 people because you can't 3v1 people if everyone's in duos. And in general, I think it would probably make the games go by a lot faster. This game definitely right now has a problem of games lasting for way too long because characters have so much sustain and mobility that you can end up in level or like the third or fourth circle, like halfway through a game and there's still 7-8 teams alive. It's kind of absurd.
Two available, and they've both got their own flavors. First up is the Universal Simulation Joint, or the USJ for short. This stage is based on the training area from the
Yeah, so USJ is still largely the same. It did get this mountain zone change. It also got the water zone changed at one point. Still a very good map. I think probably my second favorite. And then Season 3 was UA Island. Yeah, and UA Island is still very good. This map also got a big rework, I think in the second anniversary actually, right after this video came out. I think this is by far my favorite map. The two we've gotten since then have been Chaos City and Neo Academia. Both of those maps are just kind of okay. I like Chaos City a bit more. I think, again, I mentioned it earlier, Neo Academia is just too dense. It's way too easy to rat on a map like that. But I think Chaos City is okay. The new rework to it is fine. It's not especially amazing, but it's alright. But again, it is just nice that we've been getting new maps in general.
Which things. It's also insanely fun to traverse as high mobility characters like Ochako, Suyu, or Aizawa. It basically becomes a really roundabout way of playing a Spider-Man game.
Yeah, I would still say that holds true. Mobility characters in this game are very fun, even if they can be very frustrating to fight at points. So I forget when they made this change. It was sometime during year 2 or 3? Or sometime during year 3, I think, within the past year. It might have been the second anniversary, I don't remember. But they made a huge change to air mobility, where before a lot of moves would lock your momentum in place and you couldn't really strafe after you use them in midair. You would kind of have to like jiggle your ADS button and turn very slowly, like you're friggin' air strafing in Team Fortress in a Source game almost. But they eventually made it so you can just move freely in the air after using abilities, and that definitely made the counterplay to mobility a bit less fair, but it also just generally made the game a lot more fun. So I don't necessarily have an issue with that. I don't think it's something they'll ever walk back because it's already been this long.
Other battle royales, there's also a timer in place that shrinks the effective playable area down every few minutes. In this case, you're staying out of a poisonous cloud of gas. Early on, it's not too dangerous to traverse if you need to help a teamate or pick up some items.
Okay, so this is something that actually they completely overhauled about a season or two ago. They added what I think in Fortnite is called storm sickness. Essentially, if you stay in the damage zone for too long, it starts increasing. In this game, it's really brutal. If you stay out for more than 10 seconds, the damage, I think, increases by 50%. Which, early game's still not that big a deal, but it means that late game storm stalling is pretty inefficient unless you have a particular ability. I don't know when we're going to talk about tunings, but we'll talk about that sometime.
Character has 3 quirk skills, fancy guns or shields or wacky throwables to find, but you can still nab item boxes with healing items, revival items, and most importantly, quirk skill cards. Every character has 3
So this is something that's not changed at all, which I think is a little disappointing. They basically added no new items whatsoever. There's no collectibles, no pickups, just the general gameplay loop has not changed at all. I thought for sure at some point they would add maybe some kind of mobs or robots or Nomu or something for you to fight that isn't a person. Another player, I mean. But they really just didn't, and I don't know why. I guess they're just content with the game mode as it is right now, which is fine. We're just talking about team comps here, nothing super important. Giving items to teammates, things like that. Let's see. Yeah, so this is still talking about items. Plus Ultra, that's basically the same as always. Some bugs. Yeah, most of this is not it's just me explaining the gameplay mechanics, which aren't really what we're looking for right now. Oh, wait, hang on.
Getting rid of the more game-breaking bugs, season.
Yeah, this game still does have quite a few bugs. It's not silly things like the camera bug. Thankfully, things like your banners don't fall under the map anymore like they did Season 1, which is pretty bad. For whatever reason, this season has had server timeout issues a lot, though. Season 18. It's very strange. But in general, I would say the game is, fine as far as performance. It's not, super well optimized. It's not a very graphically intensive game, but there can be points where You will just get frame drops just because the game overall is not very well optimized. Let's see, we're still talking about reviving things. Again, I know this video pretty well, so we can kind of scrub through the stuff that's not super important. Oh, but actually, speaking of, we're going to start talking about this now, one of my favorite parts of the game.
Blinder touch eyeball crush! Showtime! No smiling anymore, eh?
Ew, no way. We always get lumped together. You think so? I'll do the interviews.
I'll pass.
Like One's Justice 2 before it, this game features a full English dub, with every member of the anime's cast returning to reprise their roles. Unlike that game, however, the dub was available at launch and has noticeably better direction and overall audio quality. OJ2 came out just...
So, something to mention when I mentioned the direction here, because it's really noticeable when you play One's Justice 2 that the vocal direction in that game is just not particularly strong. And weirdly enough, that seems to be a problem in All's Justice as well, from what I've seen of that game. The voice performances just aren't as good as they could be, which is weird, because in this game, to this day, they are still fantastic. Every single new character they've added has had a fantastic vocal performance in English specifically. I don't play the Japanese. I don't play with Japanese audio, but every single character in English has sounded great. And it's weird that like presumably this is the same recording studio. It's the same developers, obviously, same publishers. So I wonder what's different. If it really is just that the projects have different voice directors, and for whatever reason the director of All's Justice was like, Again, I haven't played that game for myself. I've mostly just seen like some of the super animations and heard the voices there, and like they're fine. But I don't know what it is about this game where they just decided that every character is going to sound amazing. Yeah, so I mentioned here that part of it might have been COVID delays for One's Justice 2.
Voice direction of individual characters is pretty inconsistent as a result. Ultra Rumble doesn't have this problem, thankfully, and for what was probably delivered to them is, hey, can you come in and record some stuff for another game? I think it's some of the best work these actors have done as these characters. Everyone is believably in character, has solid line reads, and at no point does it feel phoned in. I know a lot of people...
So yeah, again, I kind of just talked about it right now, but all of that more or less holds up. And they've also been adding like more, interactions, things like that. Whenever a new character gets added, old characters will still have voice interactions with them. So like Young All for One and Bakugo, or like One for All Midoriya and Bakugo. It's just so good. It really is like I say one of the strongest parts of the game. And I think that's something that a lot of anime games do fairly well. It's just a lot of fan servicey things like that.
Ass ton of contextual dialogue for different character interactions.
And yeah, there's still tons of that as well. And I think we also, let me see right here.
It's the main reason I don't care for crossovers in games like Fortnite. That game has practically built its entire identity on being a massive IP circle jerk. Hell, My Hero itself has already done a few collabs.
I don't think I'll ever like how anime characters look in My Hero. This isn't maybe the most flattering screenshot. Fortnite itself is a nice looking game when it comes to the original assets. But I really feel like a lot of the crossovers in that game look pretty ugly. They just don't hit for me.
We've done a few collabs with it, but it just feels so soulless. You aren't really playing as Doomguy or Goku or, holy crap, Lois, it's Peter Griffin in Fortnite. It's just this creepy, empty husk.
Yeah, I would say that sentiment has only gotten stronger as time has gone on. I just don't care for these kinds of crossovers. And some other games will at least make it so it's just a costume that an existing character wears, like Overwatch does that a lot, and that's fine. But I think in general people are kind of getting more and more sick of crossovers. Not that they like hate them necessarily, but it definitely has become a lot less novel when it's just like, oh, okay, friggin' anybody can be in Fortnite now, so nobody is in Fortnite really, because it can be whatever. Fucking Amazing Digital Circus is in Fortnite. Like, who cares? You can just put anything in that game at this point. It's not special,
Controlling a puppet. I know it's a phrase that has been torn to shreds as far as gaming critiques go, but when I play as a certain character, I want to,
feel like Spider-Man. He did it twice!
If all I wanted to do is a
little donkey joke for you. I think right here we talk about the visuals a little bit.
I guess we can also talk about the visual presentation. It's serviceable. Like I mentioned at the start, a lot of it is just taken wholesale from OJ2 with some different lighting and visual effects. Characters match the source material well enough, and nothing looks jarring or off-model. Certainly runs better with the PC version of the game supporting high frame rates, but I wouldn't call it a huge step up from that game's visuals. I get that.
So All's Justice does look a bit better. It definitely has nicer lighting, better environments, but on the whole, it's still not an amazing looking game. Again, God, and speaking of anime-looking games that we've gotten recently, Marvel Tokon Fighters just dropped like a week or two ago at the time of recording this, and that game is just beautiful, top to bottom. It'd be nice if I could actually play it on PC, but Sony didn't give a shit about the PC port. So I'm probably not going to play that game for quite a while until that gets fixed up.
Or something, I don't know. But then again, for a game this fast-paced, maybe they just wanted to go with function over form. The game can already get pretty visually cluttered when more than 2 teams are involved in a fight, and if the visuals were more stylistic or experimental, it could just make things worse.
Yeah, that's something that's definitely gotten worse as time has gone on. So many more characters have like ridiculous AoE attacks, and there's so much shit on your screen in this game sometimes. It can be a bit much, for sure. So this is just talking about the maps and like the memorabilia, all the nice little touches. Costumes looking good, you know, things like that. I still really like this bit here. This is a good joke, I think.
Let's say though, some of these voice lines are kinda strange.
I'd like you to remove your head from your ass, but I don't see that happening anytime soon!
Don't fuck with me!
However...
Okay, so the Kirishima line is taken from Yu Yu Hakusho. Justin Cook, phenomenal actor as always, and Yusuke is such a fantastic character. This is taken from Panty and Stocking, Jamie Markey voicing Panty in that series. Absolutely crass character, and I thought it'd be really funny if Mount Lady said fuck, you know?
Anytime soon!
Don't fuck with me!
And it's the exact same voice too, which is part of why I think that joke lands so well. Oh, but here we're getting to the part of the game that really has not gotten any better, and arguably has gotten worse.
However, now that we've started talking about cosmetics and unlockables, it's about time we get to what is easily the most contentious part of this game. The one that many a negative Steam review will bring up when describing why they didn't stick with the game. The reason this game is free to play, and where Namco's greed is at its most apparent. The unlock system. Now, let's be honest, there's pretty much no way for a free-to-play game to have a monetization system that people will actually like.
So, I've softened a bit on this. When a game does things like, because I think I do specifically mention, I specifically mentioned Overwatch, and like, at a certain point, I don't really care about this kind of monetization anymore. When the whole game can be played for free, and it's just cosmetics that are paid, I don't really care. That's fine. You know, if people want to spend money on their favorite characters just for a skin, you know, go right ahead. That's okay. What this game's problem had, and what's only gotten worse as time has gone on, is that you need to do your gacha rolls to unlock characters and skill sets, and now costumes aren't just cosmetic anymore because of the tuning system, which was not a thing when this video came out. Tuning is essentially an ability/skill set system where you can take your costume and you can put in character data into slots to give you passive buffs, and you can also get active buffs in your big slots that can do some pretty crazy impactful things. And if you want to have the best versions of all of those with like the longest durations or the strongest effects for like healing or whatever, you need the super special costumes, the gacha roll costumes that have higher level caps and things like that. And not only does that require you to essentially gamble to get all of your new stuff,
be a victim of using a gacha-based roll system for its unlocks, but it also puts quirk skill sets and entire characters behind this system. When you
so it's not only a matter of getting the costume and what you want, you also need tons of like consumable items that you basically have to grind for. And I will say they have gotten better about giving you items as far as like events, but it is still very grindy, and if you're new, you're gonna feel completely lost because like, yeah, this is season 5, and I still have some locked characters here. I didn't even have every character when recording this video, because, you know, it's tied to RNG. And obviously, you know, okay, so this is something they have made better, is the special license
that everyone has access to at all times. You level this up just by playing, and through it you can unlock Bakugo, Todoroki, Sue, Mr. Compress, Himiko, and finally All Might.
And this hasn't changed. If anything, the special license has gotten better. They've made it so you can fast track this license much faster now. It's very easy to level this up and get more items. They added a ton more items to it, as well as some costumes. So this aspect specifically is a lot nicer.
A number of other characters can also be unlocked using character tickets, which you can buy in the in-game shop without spending any real money.
So yeah, tickets are still here, and you can actually buy a lot more characters with the tickets than I realized in this video. I thought it was just, do I actually hide? I thought it was just these 5, but it was actually quite a lot more. And now you can actually use tickets to buy certain alternate styles that you couldn't buy before. So that's a good change for sure. But there's still a lot of new characters that you can't get even with tickets. So basically anyone released after the first anniversary, you cannot get with tickets currently.
Limited use, and don't get me wrong, that sucks. Nobody should have their favorite character locked behind RNG, especially not in an online-only multiplayer game.
Yeah,
You
and
can
that's like the
still play
biggest
as
issue
them,
with
but-
this, is that this is a multiplayer game. It's one thing if it's like, you know, a PvE game, a single player game, you know, a single player gacha where it's just a matter of, do you want this stuff? But here it's also a matter of, not only do you want it, but also, hey, if the other person has it and you don't, maybe they just have an advantage over you. Because maybe they just have the better characters or the better skin that actually has, you know, better stat boosts or whatever. And granted, the passive stat boosts that you get are really, really minor. They're like single-digit percentage increases, so those aren't too big a deal. But the main slot tuning skills are definitely very impactful, and there's a big difference between having, you know, useful tuning slots for your character and having nothing at all. I wouldn't say it makes your character unplayable, but you certainly do have to try a lot harder.
RNG in the first place is unacceptable. And it gets even worse. Remember those quirk skill sets I mentioned a while ago? The alternate movesets for characters that shake up the way they play? Yeah, those can only be used if you've unlocked them from rolls.
So, okay, this is still true. You can't rent alternate styles, which I think is really, really lame, because there's a lot of them now. At the very least, again, you can buy some of them with tickets, but not very many. I want, again, up to year 1, so I think that's Deku, one of Bakugo's, because he has 2, one of Shigaraki's, because he also has 2, Dabi, Todoroki, and I think Himiko are the only alternate styles you can get currently.
Even if you do end up spending money, there's no guarantee that you'll get what you want. Yeah, sure, there's a point system in play where you can exchange points for an item of your choosing, but characters and skill sets cost 200 fucking points.
Yeah, this hasn't gotten any better either. The point system is still really bad. You have to do so many rolls to get guaranteed characters and items, and it's just, blech. It's really bad.
Understand why someone would see this system and immediately drop the game without giving it a second thought. It's the embodiment of scummy, free-to-play microtransactions that prey on people with bad impulse control and, more importantly, kids. This game is available on all current platforms, which means it's on Switch, which means it can easily be played by elementary or middle schoolers who know how to use a credit card without permission.
Yeah, so I don't know how often this sort of thing happens anymore. I feel like it surely still does. But I definitely feel like most kids these days, if they're going to spend money on free-to-play games, they're playing Fortnite, you know? I think unless you really, really like My Hero, you're probably just playing Fortnite instead. But that being said, yeah, the monetization is still not good as far as how it locks characters. And you don't have to spend money, of course, but I mean, you are technically at a disadvantage. I don't necessarily think so. But if you want to, like, guarantee getting something, the amount of money you have to spend, assuming you have 0 tickets to pull, it is like an absurd amount of money. It's like several $100s to guarantee a single character, assuming you don't get lucky, which is still very bad.
Cash on it. I've certainly spent a pretty penny on free-to-play games in the past, but not everybody can do that.
Yeah, and I certainly have a bit of a fancier TF2 inventory since then, but I do this mainly because, not just because TF2 is my favorite game of all time, but at the very least, items in TF2 have real-world monetary value. I can sell, when I'm eventually, you know, someday in the future decide to stop playing TF2 forever, I can sell all of this and get real money for it, which you can't do in basically like any other game, besides like Counter-Strike, which is part of why I justify it a bit more in this game, because I can get actual money from this. Not that I do it for money, but it's more like, you know, if I wanted to, I could.
A lot of people download free-to-play games specifically because they can't afford anything else and still want a way to have some fun in their downtime. For a game that I think is so much fun and has way more potential than it really has any right to, it seriously sucks to see it burdened by such an awful monetization system. The game isn't too far away from its first anniversary, and there's always a chance we'll see some change, but knowing Namco, I seriously doubt it'll ever happen.
Okay, so yeah, I already talked about it. A lot of things did change for the better, which is good. They don't necessarily have to do with the monetization, because that really hasn't changed, but it is just easier to get more items and characters and things like that. And then here's me making a jab, because this had just recently dropped, or had recently become a thing when this was, yeah, June 12th, 2024. The $500 Ari skin. I don't know anything about League, but just seeing this was like, this is too good of a joke to not put in the video. I have to make fun of this. Like, I have to, you know? In this economy, yeah, it's not gotten much better.
Company that did that started banning that character in games so the idiots who bought it couldn't even use it?
I do think that's really funny, by the way. Like, oh, you bought fucking a $500 skin? Good luck using it, nerd. Very funny, yeah. And then this bit at the end here.
Have I mentioned just how insanely fun these characters are, though? As Izuku, you can use this sick charge shot to snipe enemies.
God, yeah, snipe shot Izuku. Sniper Deku is so much fun.
He's from super far away, and with Black Whip, you have insanely versatile movement.
Yeah, and the rest of this is just me gushing about, god damn, dude, these characters are so much fun, even if this game is kind of a mess, and it's part of why I love it. And yeah, I would say this has only gotten even crazier. There are so many ridiculous characters and battle styles you can use, and it really is just, it's insane. Like, it can be a bit much if you're first playing, and I do think that they've maybe gone a bit too far with making some characters strong or giving them like giant AoE slop abilities, but it is still just a very fun game, and there really is just nothing else like it. I think I mentioned that before, but I can scarcely think of a game that plays anything close to this in terms of just how much ridiculous nonsense there is. I know Fortnite is kind of a ridiculous game now as well, but
By all rights, this game should have been dead on arrival. When you look at what it is, a free-to-play Fortnite clone using the My Hero IP, it seems like it would be the biggest, dumbest pile of slop this side of Foam Stars. Yeah, remember that game? Of course you don't.
God, and you know what the best part about this is? Me talking about how, like, I feel like this game should have been dead on arrival just based on its concept. And since this game's release, we have gotten the industry flops known as Concord and Highguard that had way more money pumped into them than this game. And those games died within, like, what, a month of release? Less? Meanwhile, this game is almost at a 3rd anniversary and still going pretty strong. I think I mentioned the Steam charts. Yeah. It's actually been doing really well on Steam. I don't know how the console numbers are, because, you know, we can't really get console numbers. I'm sure the game is pretty popular on Switch and PS4. But Steam numbers for this game have actually been doing really well the past, like, year or so. It's surprising. And especially since they added crossplay in, like, season 9 or 10, I want to say. The game's just been doing great. It's not too difficult to get lobbies. You can still do PC only, of course. You can turn off crossplay if you want, but I think it's kind of just a waste of time, especially since matchmaking or ranked doesn't really matter in this game as much. It's mostly just a representation of how much you play, so it doesn't really affect the matchmaking too much. But yeah, them adding crossplay was definitely a huge boon for the game. It's surprising that it took them that long, but they did eventually add it, and it was a very big help.
But it's a surprisingly dedicated player base. I can only speak for ranked, but games usually only take a few minutes to get going, and you see the same people from time to time in the upper ranks too.
So that's definitely not true anymore. I would say that was true the first couple months on PC, but ever since crossplay, it's just kind of people making the same stupid, unfunny joke of like, oh, characters this or that. And apparently this is like a problem with Marvel Rivals too, where people just have really gooner, unfunny names that all the 12-year-olds seem to think is really funny. But yeah, you don't really see the same kind of people anymore. So that's kind of lame, but not really a big deal.
Apps they have coming up, what kinds of sick new costumes they'll make, what crazy new characters they can somehow translate well into a third-person shooter. If nothing else, I want to see a future for Biking. One where they can keep putting their passion into more games, keep making projects that defy their circumstances and succeed. Because an industry without that has no bright future. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, so I do think Biking has definitely been doing pretty well for themselves. I don't... Jujutsu Kaisen notwithstanding, All's Justice is fine. It's not quite amazing, but by all rights, it's probably the best One's Justice game out. I know some people probably still prefer 2, but it has plenty of things going for it. I do want to play the game for myself eventually. Probably once more the DLC comes out and it's on a good sale. And yeah, right when I was finishing editing this video, the final chapter of the manga dropped. Apparently people didn't really like the ending, which I thought was weird. I considered it to be a perfectly fine ending. Not too long after this, we did get the bonus chapter, More. It's literally just called More. And you know, it's a nice little bookend to the series, I suppose. And yeah, the anime did also finish earlier this year, the start of 2026. Pretty solid adaptation, all things considered. And then they did eventually animate the bonus chapter as well. And yeah, so I would say for the most part, I do like the state the game is in now. I definitely think it's a bit of a mess still in some aspects, but on the whole, I am pretty content with how it ended up. Like, I don't think 2 years ago when I made this video, did I ever feel like, yeah, I'm gonna come back to this 2 years later, there's gonna be twice as many characters, a bunch of maps, a new One's Justice game. I don't think I would have even considered that back then, that there would just be so much more to even talk about for this game, you know? So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where the game is. I still play it pretty regularly, not every day, but I do at least make it a point to play a decent amount, you know, try out the new characters, reach the highest rank, because I wouldn't say it's that difficult to reach high ranks as long as you're playing decently well. But yeah, I still really do like the game. I think it has a lot of oh yeah, cheaters are definitely still an issue. It's not nearly as prevalent as it used to be, but there definitely are still
cheaters. This game's anti-cheat is about as functional as All Might's gut. Despite all that, I'm still playing, and unless Namco fucks up the game even harder or just straight up takes it down, I'm gonna keep playing.
Yeah, so that is more or less how things ended up. People have gotten some pretty pretty crazy hacks. Like, there are some cheats where people will transform the entire lobby into the same character, or like warp everyone out into Storm at the end game. It's, at the very least, they're funnier than just, you know, speed hacks being named, you know, having speed hacks on Dobby while your character is named pornography with zeros. That's really lame. So yeah, cheating is definitely still a problem. It's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be. You don't see it that often anymore, thankfully. But yeah, I don't know. I think on the whole, most of the points I made in the video still hold up, even if some of the content is a bit outdated. I'm definitely still gonna keep playing the game, because again, pretty much all the reasons I liked it are still present. It's not like anything about that has really changed since the game was released. They haven't done anything like so awful where it's like, damn, I don't want to play the game anymore. Even though they have, you know, I think probably the worst thing they've done is gut Nagant, because I did really like the character. But there's still so many other characters you can play in this game that are really fun that I don't necessarily mind it. It's a bummer, but it's not a huge deal. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the game in its current state. It is definitely still has quite a lot of the same issues that it used to, but I think it also has gotten plenty of improvements. I think on the whole it is a better game than it used to be, even if it has a lot of problems. I would say they're at least different problems, you know, not necessarily a lot of the same ones, which is nice. Yeah, it's still good. And I would say if you're kind of even remotely interested, and you know, I would say the caveat just has to be that you like My Hero. If you don't like My Hero in any capacity, this game's not really going to be for you. But if you do, then I definitely think at least give the game a shot, especially with some friends, because it is still a very fun time. It's a bit broken in, you know, a lot of ways, but overall still very, very enjoyable. Yeah, that's for sure this time everything I have to say. So thanks for sticking around. If you made it all the way to the end of this little retrospective look back. I'm still pretty proud of this video. This is definitely the most work I've put into a video, even more so than the Transformers one. So I've definitely still looked back on this video fondly, even if things like my mic quality were abysmal back then. But I think as far as my editing and my scripting goes, all of that was still fairly well put together, considering this was the first time I made a video like this. And I definitely would like to make more long-form scripted videos, if given the chance. I mentioned it briefly in the Transformers video, but I could do a video on the Legend of Korra game. I do still have it in my Steam inventory, or my Steam library. I mentioned that it's a good game, more or less, so I don't know. I wouldn't be against looking back on that. If anyone's interested in that, I would definitely be okay with doing it. That's definitely the end this time. So thanks, and see you later, I suppose.